and so they would tell stories, and those stories would then, intuitively you would learn. They weren't lectures, you will do this and you will not, it's subtler than that. And because the storytelling isn't confrontational, you can sort of listen to the story and you get your little bits of advice out of it. But I was just curious the fact that those stories weren't being told anymore. Yeah. I mean, the motifs, not exactly the stories themselves, but the motifs that were in those stories, the sort of psychological underpinnings. And I was curious, and then I thought I would like to take that and put it in a modern context, and I'd like to use as a vehicle Saturday matinee serials, which were these really high-powered action adventures that existed for 15 minutes, and each Saturday they'd show a different one. And if you missed one, you just sort of picked it up, and so you never really saw, unless you were a really avid moviegoer, you never saw the whole thing. You only saw parts of it. Right. So it was designed to be like that. It was designed to start in episode 4. You're in the middle of this thing, and that would be the end of it. It was one movie.
Right.
It just grew to be 3 movies, unfortunately, because I wrote more than I expected. But that is then what sidetracked me, because Star Wars, became so successful that it kind of took over my life in terms of it was an opportunity that I couldn't pass up, in terms of I was determined to make all 3 films right from the very get-go. As soon as I wrote them and I put 2 of them on the shelf, I said, I will get back. I promise I will end up doing these 2 movies no matter what.
So you put the scripts on the shelf?
So I put the script on the shelf. I said, I'll do this one because this is all I can afford to do at this point. And I'll make this movie, and then when it fails, I'll do everything I can to get the next one made, and when that one fails, I'll do everything to get the next one made. That was my mindset at the time.
So when you think now about what Peter Jackson did with The Ring, what do you think?
Well, he was faced with exactly the same situation. And he had to be more clever. I mean, he took a different route, which is to convince the studio to make all 3 movies.
Yeah.
And sort of get them pregnant with all of them.
And he had the advantage of Star Wars being part of the...
Well, I don't think it was any easier. It wasn't any easier.
No, not easier, but you mean the cell wasn't any easier?
No, the cell wasn't easier, and basically what he did was say, well, I'll do all of them at once, and it'll cost the same price as if I did one. Yeah. And somebody bought that story. And then later on, he said, oh, yeah, and by the way, I didn't really shoot all of them. I only shot a little bit of each one, and now we're going to have to pay for all of them.
Exactly.
But by then it was too late, and he was lucky that it was, he did a fantastic job. It was extremely successful, so that it was okay for the other ones to be done.
But you knew at the time you were locked into 3.
Yeah, and I knew that I assumed that I was going to fail all the way through it.
Why did you assume you were going to fail?
Well, because that's what normally happens. 9 out of 10 movies fail.
Yeah, and fear of the unknown is part of the theme of this.
Well, it's just, as a filmmaker, you've got to be real practical, which is you're always looking to get your next film made. And you're assuming that this one isn't going to be a giant hit. So you're assuming that you're not going to be worth any more after the film as you are before it, and if it doesn't work at all, then you're going to be worth less in terms of your power to get another movie made.
Only as good as your last movie.
You're only as good as, and that's a real thing, and that's something you live with, and if you're a filmmaker, you definitely want to get your next film made, but you don't want to compromise your vision. So if you put those 2 things together, the obvious conclusion is that it will fail because my vision is too wacky. I mean, you got to remember, in those days, even Star Wars was experimental. Even Star Wars was something the studios, a couple studios turned it down. Alan Ladd Jr., when he gave me the go-ahead, he said, look, I don't understand this script, I don't understand your movie, but I think you're a talented guy, and whatever you do is okay with me.
Man, that's a hell of an executive, isn't it?
That's a great executive. That's somebody that says, I'm going to invest in talent. I'm not going to invest in this project.
Right.
I'm going to invest in somebody that I believe in. And he reaped the rewards of that. And he had to fight the board and everybody else because nobody else believed in it or understood it. So it wasn't like a slam dunk, oh my God, it's Star Wars. It was this weird movie with Wookiees and robots, going back to robots.